Peyton adjusted the silk ribbon on the custom invitation card, her fingers trembling slightly. 10 years. A full decade since she married Liam Kingsley, the polished son of a powerful family who had always looked at her like she was an unexpected smudge on a crystal glass. The rooftop restaurant shimmered with candlelight and white linens. Everything had been planned to perfection. She had poured herself into every detail from the menu to the flower arrangements. Liam's only contribution was booking the venue. Peyton did not mind he was always hands-off when it came to planning, but she hoped just this once he might show her he saw the effort. As guests trickled in, Peyton's mother, Marissa, arrived quietly dressed in a simple blue dress and low heels. She hugged Peyton softly, her eyes warm but observant. Then came Vivian Kingsley, Liam's mother, head held high, pearls gleaming her sharp eyes, scanning the room like a general surveying a battlefield. The evening buzzed with polite laughter toasts and glittering glasses until Vivian stood to speak. Peyton's stomach clenched. Tonight, Vivian began, we honor my son Liam, and the daughter of a village farmer who was lucky enough to marry into our family. A ripple of laughter passed through the room. Peyton froze. Liam smirked and lifted his phone to record. Vivian continued painting Peyton's upbringing as something quaint charming, even but clearly beneath her son. The laughter grew. Peyton's face burned. She glanced at Liam, silently begging for him to stop it, but he was laughing with them. Then slowly, Marissa rose from her chair. She looked at Vivian with quiet fire and said calmly, "At least she did not sell herself." The room fell silent. Vivian's smirk vanished, her face ashen. Liam's phone dropped to his lap. The tension cracked the evening like glass under pressure. Peyton, still seated, felt the weight of years shift in a single moment. Her mother's voice echoed louder than any toast, carrying history, pain, and truth. That night, beneath the glittering skyline, Peyton understood something had broken open, and there would be no going back. The morning after the banquet, Peyton awoke to silence. The kind that presses down like fog, thick, heavy, and full of everything left unsaid. The apartment was pristine, the sun glinting off marble countertops, and glass vases filled with last night's leftover roses. But Peyton felt hollow. The night had been a perfect illusion until Vivian's toast shattered it. That single moment, her mother-in-law's cruel smile, the word Farmer Liam's laugh, echoing across the table, like a betrayal wrapped in champagne, played over and over in her mind. She moved robotically through her morning routine, hearing the tap of her mother's words still hanging in the air. At least she didn't sell herself. It had landed like a guillotine, slicing through decades of lies, pride, and false civility. Liam had said nothing afterward, just a quick kiss on the cheek and a murmured, "She didn't mean anything by it." Peyton wanted to scream. Instead, she packed a small bag and headed across town to her mother's house. Marissa greeted her with open arms and herbal tea, but the questions could not be buried beneath chamomile steam. "Why did you say that?" Peyton asked quietly. Marissa stirred her tea eyes distant. "Because the truth deserves its place, even at a table dressed in white linen." Peyton stared at her, waiting. What truth? What history had turned her gentle, retiring mother into someone who could bring a room of elites to its knees with one sentence? And if you think that truth is going to shake everything, Peyton thought she knew about her marriage, her family, and her place in this world, type yes in the comments and subscribe to the channel now. You do not want to miss what happens next. Peyton sat back on the couch, her spine stiff, the silence between them growing heavy. "Tell me," she said again. Marissa sighed, set down her cup, and began with 6 words that made Peyton's world tilt. "Your father was not my first love." As the story unfolded, Peyton would learn that she was the living reminder of a betrayal her mother-in-law had tried to bury. The toast had not just been cruelty, it had been fear. And now that fear had a name. Hers. Peyton sat frozen on her mother's worn floral sofa, a half-empty cup of tea growing cold in her hands. Outside, the wind stirred the oak trees, but inside time felt like it had stopped. Marissa's voice was calm, but every word landed with weight. "Your father," she said, "wasn't always mine. He loved someone else first, Vivian Kingsley." Peyton's breath caught. Her mind raced trying to bridge the woman who had humiliated her last night with the secret now unraveling before her. Marissa went on speaking slowly, like peeling back layers of old wallpaper. Decades ago, Vivian and a young engineer, Peyton's father, had been in love. They were poor but full of dreams. Then came the offer Vivian could not resist, a wealthy, influential man who promised status, luxury, and an escape from poverty. She chose comfort over love, left him behind, and stepped into the high society world she had always craved. He was devastated. And when Marissa found him again, broken and grieving, she stood by him. Their love grew not from whirlwind passion, but from steady healing. They built a quiet life filled with warmth, honesty, and a daughter they cherished. Peyton felt as though the walls around her were shifting. "Vivian," knew, she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Marissa nodded. "She recognized you the moment Liam brought you home. She knew exactly who you were, and that's why she's hated you from the start. Not because of your background, Peyton, but because you are living proof of the man she gave up. You are what she might have had if she had chosen love over power." Peyton stared at the steam rising from her tea memories, clicking into place. The cold smiles, the veiled comments, the subtle efforts to make her feel less than. It had never been about her career, her family, or where she grew up. It had always been personal. She was the mirror Vivian could not bear to face. A fire lit in Peyton's chest, not just pain, but clarity. The woman who insulted her publicly had been crumbling quietly all along. And now Peyton knew the truth. Not just about Vivian, but about herself. She was not the outsider. She was the legacy. And that changed everything. The days following the revelation at her mother's house passed in a fog of silence and awkward routines. Peyton returned home to a husband who was suddenly too attentive. Flowers, dinner reservations, half-hearted jokes, but none of it touched the raw ache she carried. Liam never asked where she had gone that day, nor did he acknowledge the storm brewing beneath her calm exterior. He operated like a man trying to erase an ugly stain with glitter. But Peyton was not glittering, she was sharpening. Every forced smile from Vivian, every backhanded compliment, every time Liam avoided confrontation, they all felt different now. More calculated, more cowardly. She had spent years trying to fit into a world that was never meant to welcome her, and now she saw it for what it was, a polished cage. Vivian, of course, resumed her reign with silent smugness. She hosted a brunch for the family, acting as though the anniversary toast had never happened. Peyton sat at the table, watching her mother-in-law's lips move while wondering how many people in the room knew the truth. Did any of them suspect the roots beneath the surface, the betrayal that linked their families like twisted vines? Liam barely looked up from his mimosa. Peyton began taking mental notes, each moment of dismissal, each time he chose neutrality over partnership. She started journaling everything, not out of spite, but out of necessity. She needed to see it in black and white, what she had tolerated, what she had excused, and what she would never allow again. Each evening, she would go into her home office, not to work, but to read the old letters her father had written to her mother during the time Vivian had left him. Words filled with heartbreak, but also with strength. He had survived. Marissa had loved him through the cracks. That was the kind of love Peyton wanted, not one that bowed to power, but one that stood its ground. One night, as Liam reached for her hand across the couch, Peyton looked at him and realized something deeply unsettling. She no longer trusted the man who had once promised to protect her. And without trust, what were they even holding on to? The house was quiet, but her resolve was growing louder. Peyton was done waiting to be chosen. Now she would choose herself. Peyton stood in the kitchen, staring out the window as the kettle whistled behind her. The afternoon sun spilled over the marble counters, but nothing about the moment felt warm. Liam's footsteps entered the room with practiced softness. "Want tea?" she asked, her voice steady. He nodded, but the silence between them was louder than any scream. After pouring 2 cups, Peyton sat at the table and looked him directly in the eyes. "We need to talk," she said. Liam shifted uncomfortably. "If this is about Mom again, It's not just about your mom, she cut in tone firm. It's about you. About how you stood there while she humiliated me. About how you laughed. Liam looked down, shame flickering across his face. It was a joke, he muttered. She didn't mean it. Peyton's lips pressed into a line. She did. And you knew it. She let the silence stretch until he was forced to sit across from her, unable to hide behind distraction. I spent 10 years believing we were partners, that I could trust you to protect me. But when it mattered, you chose comfort over courage. Liam's eyes met hers, startled by the calm in her fury. So what are you saying? He asked. Peyton took a breath. I'm saying this is a turning point. You either stand with me, truly openly, or I stand alone. I won't spend another decade being tolerated by your family while you pretend to be neutral. I'm your wife, not a guest in your mother's palace. Liam sat frozen. The weight of her words crushed his rehearsed excuses. I don't want to lose you, he said. Then prove it, she replied. Not with flowers, not with dinner reservations, with action, with loyalty, with a spine. She stood up, leaving her tea untouched, and walked away without looking back. That night, Liam sat alone in the kitchen for hours. No distractions, no Vivian to hide behind, just the echo of his wife's ultimatum ringing in his ears. And upstairs, Peyton stared at the ceiling, a storm of uncertainty raging within her. She did not know what his choice would be, but she finally knew her own. She would no longer beg to belong. She would demand to be respected or walk away without fear. Vivian Kingsley had always operated like a queen, graceful, commanding, untouchable. But ever since Peyton's confrontation with Liam, her facade had begun to fray. Peyton noticed it in small ways, first the forced smiles that did not quite reach Vivian's eyes, the hesitation before speaking in family gatherings, the way her gaze flinched when it met Marissa's across the room. Peyton had not told her mother-in-law what she knew not yet, but silence had a way of becoming its own weapon. The tension was no longer one-sided. Vivian could feel Peyton watching her no longer with insecurity, but with quiet power. And it rattled her. Then came the afternoon tea at the Kingsley estate, a gathering Vivian hosted for her social circle. Peyton attended dressed in crisp ivory and minimal jewelry, her presence sharper than any diamond. The table was set to perfection, yet as Peyton sat across from Vivian, it was clear who held the room's attention. Vivian tried to regain control with subtle digs, but Peyton responded with unshakable poise, each word calculated, each smile deliberate. It was a silent chess match, and Vivian was losing ground. Afterward, Peyton found her alone in the conservatory, trimming orchids with a shaky hand. You do not like me, Peyton began softly. You never have. But I know why now. Vivian froze. Her knuckles whitened around the pruning shears. You think I'm trying to destroy your family, she said tightly. Peyton shook her head. No. I think I'm a reminder of the one you could have had. And I think that scares you more than you're willing to admit. Vivian looked at her, then really looked, her eyes searching for the familiar weakness and finding none. Just calm strength. You're not like your mother, she said after a long pause. You're right, Peyton replied. I am not. I will not stay silent when I am disrespected. I will not let you decide my worth. That night, Peyton did not tell Liam about the conversation. She did not need to. Her mother-in-law's tone shifted in family gatherings. The barbs dulled. The tension bent. Slowly, subtly, Vivian was changing, not from love, but from fear. And sometimes that was enough. Peyton had not won a war, but she had ended the silence. And that was a start. The shift was quiet, but Peyton felt it in her bones. Vivian no longer made sharp remarks at family dinners. Her eyes no longer carried the same icy judgment. She had not apologized, and Peyton did not expect her to, but the fear of losing Liam had softened her edges. It was not warmth, but it was a crack in the wall. And Peyton had learned to accept small victories. Liam, too, had changed. He began calling Marissa to ask how she was. He no longer defaulted to defending his mother, and when he saw Peyton walk into a room, he stood up straighter as if finally seeing her. Still, trust was not something Peyton handed back easily. She moved through their marriage with measured grace, watching closely, knowing words were easy, but consistency was earned. Sometimes she caught Liam watching her with a look that bordered on regret, as if he finally understood the strength he had nearly broken. One weekend, Peyton suggested visiting her mother's cottage on the outskirts of town. Liam agreed without hesitation. The moment they arrived, Marissa welcomed them with warm tea, fresh-baked bread, and quiet acceptance. They sat on the porch, talking about nothing and everything. As the sun dipped below the trees, casting gold across the fields, Peyton leaned against Liam. She did not say, "I forgive you." She did not need to. Her presence was enough. In that stillness, she realized something important. This family flawed, bruised healing was worth fighting for, but never at the cost of her dignity again. If you believe Peyton's journey is just beginning, one of healing strength and deeper truths, comment, "I'm ready," and subscribe to follow the rest of this unforgettable story. Because sometimes the quietest revolutions start at home. Wait,